excuse me, all the things that East Lansing stands for. The only real reason we are rushing to a decision tonight is because we are worried about, quote, losing taxing capacity if we don't rush to a February vote. That's the, quote, window of opportunity, end quote. Now, my recollection is that the, quote, window of opportunity, end quote, we on the board didn't even know about until about halfway through the board, or excuse me, the Citizens Committee deliberations. And I suspect one of the reasons we realized that was because we had the foresight to make the county treasurer one of the members of the committee. And he follows these things. And I'm glad we find out about it. But, you know, children have lived with transitions for the last 10 years. Our taxpayers have lived with aging school buildings for the last 10 years. Glen Caron has lived with a 5-6 school for the last 10 years. White Hills has lived with a 5-6 school for the last 10 years. Our parents have lived with staffing difficulties and varied class sizes for at least the last 10 years. But because we can't get more taxes from our citizens if we don't wait for the bond vote, we are potentially deciding tonight a purported global solution to all these problems. We are going to replace 5 elementary schools with essentially brand new ones. We are going to change Glen Caron and White Hills back to K-5 schools. So does everybody win? I think not. This proposed solution does not, quote, mesh, end quote. This proposed solution does not, quote, do no harm, end quote. This proposed solution does not represent consensus. This proposed solution doesn't even represent a prudent business decision. So it will come as no surprise to anyone that I will vote tonight against any proposal which seeks to close any school in the city of East Lansing at this time. Why? Because such a decision is totally unnecessary at this juncture for, among other things, the following reasons. Our school district is in demand and is well situated in the marketplace. There is no other school district in this county which offers what this one does. And all you have to do, is hear everybody come up and talk about their experience in the East Lansing Public Schools, whether it's White Hills or Glen Caron or Red Cedar or wherever. 2, there is no immediate or near-term financial crisis in the East Lansing Public Schools. I can't recall all of the history of this, but I believe that when we started this process approximately 2 years ago, the facts were different and there was much more of a short-term threat. I don't think that near-term threat is still here. The current legislature has already passed and will, I believe, continue to pass legislation which gives school districts some significant relief, relative to the huge payroll benefits problems which confront them. 4, although I accept the proposition that we may need new elementary schools, I do not support the proposition that all elementary schools must be replaced in one fell swoop. I challenge anybody in this room or up on this dais to give me one example of any school district in the state of Michigan that's replaced every elementary school with one bond proposal. No fiduciary duty requires us to decide to tax our citizens to the maximum in a time of economic uncertainty based on outdated assessment data just because we can. If that means we have less money to build schools in the future, so then let it be. Now, I understand there's discussion back and forth about bonding capacities. I don't think anybody on this board can criticize me for being a crazy spending liberal for the 8 years I've been on this board. I have tried to watch the dollars, and I think one of the reasons we're in as good a shape as we are is because Dave Chapin's been here. So, but my attitude is, look, I don't like being pressured into making decisions because of some artificial deadline that our very excellent bond attorneys, our very excellent bond counsel, the financial counsel have informed us is, wow, if you guys do this now, you're $12 million ahead of if you just wait to do it next fall. You know what? If we have to be rushed to a decision like that because we want to grab another $12 million, then we're not using the right criteria for our decisions. 6, I've heard no one say, with all due respect to Glencairn or any of the other school areas, well, why don't we just transfer the Glencairn culture to Red Cedar? Many of our citizens have communicated to us their belief that an intrinsic value of the city of East Lansing is its existing neighborhood schools. So I ask my fellow school board members, with all due respect, to turn away from this path. Now, having said that I'm changing my mind and don't think we should move ahead the way we're moving ahead, what would I support tonight? I would support at least 3 things. Number 1, I would support a motion which maintains the status quo with no bond vote. In other words, do nothing. Do no harm. In the alternative, I would support a motion which constructs a 6th grade wing at McDonald and awaits further developments to decide on any proposed reconfiguration of the elementary schools. As a third alternative, I would support a motion which makes no change in the status quo other than to rebuild only 2 elementary schools via a bond proposal to be presented to the voters in February. Why ask the voters for $62 million, $55 million, I don't know, you pick your figure. The figure changes all the time too, no offense to anybody. But the reality is, why would we go ask them to vote $60 million to build 5 new elementary schools, in the process potentially kill 1 elementary school that seems to be working, and when we could just take this 1 school at a time or a couple schools at a time. Now, I've heard board members via the grapevine say, well, you can't go out and ask for one or two schools to be voted on because everybody else will be mad about that and they'll vote the bond proposal down. I'm not accepting that. I'm not accepting that. I believe in the voters. So I'm asking my fellow board members to reject the, quote, money, end quote, bully, and make a reasoned, measured, prudent financial decision. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, George. I'm going to ask for something that I may not get. Well, I'm going to ask anyway. It is really, really hard to have these conversations. And it is really, really hard to have them when we're interrupted by clapping. Now, you can say what you like about me or that request, but if you really want to hear us have an impassioned discussion where we're able to speak plainly on a personal level, because this is very personal work, as you see, please try not to clap in between. It just makes it so much more difficult. Okay. Whether you will or you won't, your decision. Other people?
Madam President,
Please don't call me madam. It makes me feel like my mother.
Well, we're in a very formal setting.
Okay,
but
go
anyhow,
ahead.
Rima,
Yeah.
do you have any up-to-date information? I know George has asked us to reject the money bully, but I think then that the facts should be on the table of what does that rejection mean? And how will we go, if we were to go forward, even with 2 buildings, what would the process be for staging and where would the funding come from? I have actually, though I've not had a conversation with Mr. Brookover, been thinking about what I had heard was a proposal coming forward. I wonder why we're not talking about 3 schools. I'm very concerned that the City of East Lansing's letter, which was carefully crafted to say, keep all schools open within the city jurisdiction, and I could not support that. Donley School is a part of our school district. Its citizens, our residents, to one of our speakers, and they pay every bit of the school taxes that everyone else in the City of East Lansing does. But I really am interested in how we would potentially fund a staggered approach.
Okay. Well, if you wouldn't mind coming forward, we have people here who have been our resources through this process.